Welcome to this explainer. Let's jump right in, shall we? Today, we're exploring a story so epic it honestly feels like it was written for a blockbuster movie. We're talking about a young man who completely shattered a 1,000-year-old empire to forge a brand new era. That's right, we are diving deep into the life of Sultan Mehmed II, better known to history as Mehmed the Conqueror. We'll be breaking down his insane military genius, the impossible logistics of his campaigns, and the remarkably vibrant civilization he built from the ground up.
You know that old saying, for one empire to rise, another must fall? Well, that perfectly sums up the vibe of 1453. It was this incredible tipping point where the fractured, waning Middle Ages crashed headfirst into the dawn of the gunpowder age. The air was literally thick with the scent of dying empires, and new ones were just waiting to redraw the global map.
Part 1. The Boy Sultan's Vow, a Crucible of Power.
To really get what drove this guy, we can't just start with his massive victories. We actually have to rewind to some pretty humiliating early years. Imagine the weight of an empire being dropped on your shoulders when you're just 12 years old. That happened to Mehmed in 1444. Facing a massive crusader threat, plus serious doubt from his own advisors and the elite janissaries, he was actually forced off the throne and into political exile in 1446. That whole experience essentially stripped away his childhood. But instead of breaking him, it replaced it with this cold, calculating drive. He just patiently studied engineering, history, and administration until he took the throne back for good in 1451.
Actually, to give you an idea of his mindset even back then, during that first short reign, when crusaders were marching in and his father refused to leave retirement, the young kid sent him this letter. If you are the Sultan, come and lead your armies. But if I am the Sultan, I hereby order you to come and lead my armies. It's just a masterful piece of psychological manipulation. You can already see the strategic brilliance he later used to completely dominate the world stage. Moving on to Section 2, Engineering the Apocalypse, Stone and Steel.
So Mehmed is back in power at age 19. He knows that to truly secure his rule, he has to do the impossible, conquer the supposedly impregnable city of Constantinople. And he realized he had to combine advanced technology with grand strategy to pull it off. In just 4 months, which is incredibly fast, his men constructed the massive Rumeli Hisari fortress on the Bosphorus. He worked right alongside his men to build walls 25 feet thick. By doing this, he completely severed the Byzantine supply lines from the Black Sea. It earned the terrifying but honestly very accurate nickname, the Throat Cutter. The siege had essentially begun before a single shot was even fired.
With the Bosphorus totally choked off, Mehmed set his sights on the city's legendary walls. And to bring them down, he practically gave a blank check to a Hungarian master founder named Urban to build an absolute monster of a cannon. We're talking over 27 feet long, firing stone balls that weighed 1,200 pounds. When they tested this thing, the roar shook the earth for miles around. It was, without a doubt, the ultimate superweapon of its era.
But think about it. How on earth do you move a 20-ton behemoth to the battlefield in the 15th century? It was a logistical masterpiece. They literally had to level the rugged Balkan roads in front of it. It took 60 oxen and 200 men just to keep the wooden axles from snapping, slowly hauling this beast 200 miles to the Roman walls. That slow, earth-shaking procession sent a very clear, terrifying message to the defenders. The Ottomans were bringing the future with them. Which brings us to Section 3, the 53-day siege, the dawn of the gunpowder age.
On April 6, 1453, the ultimate clash of civilizations kicked off. It was ancient, immovable Roman stone going up against the sheer kinetic energy of chemistry and geometry. The scale is just staggering to think about. You have over 100,000 Ottoman troops and 14 heavy artillery batteries staring down exhausted Byzantine soldiers, relying on ancient walls and Greek fire. Mehmed set up this nerve-shattering, rhythmic bombardment. Sure, the massive cannon could only fire once every 3 hours, but that relentless boom meant the defenders could never sleep and never properly repair the walls. He was slowly pulverizing their stone and their sanity.
But there was a huge snag. Mehmed faced a massive problem. How do you bypass a supposedly unbreakable iron chain guarding the Golden Horn Harbor? If you couldn't control that inlet, the city could just keep holding out. When a direct naval assault completely failed to break it, Mehmed came up with an overland transport plan so audacious, his own generals probably thought he'd lost his mind.
In the dead of night, using artillery fire just to mask the noise, thousands of his men cleared a 2-mile path straight over the steep Galata hills. They laid down these massive wooden planks, coated the whole thing in crazy amounts of animal fat, and then, using oxen, pure manpower, and even the wind with their ship's sails, they engaged in this surreal logistical ballet. They literally pulled an entire fleet over a mountain in the dark. Imagine waking up as a defender at dawn, rubbing your eyes, and realizing that 70 Ottoman ships had been dragged entirely over land and were now floating freely right inside your harbor. The sea defenses were instantly useless. Mehmed hadn't just moved ships, he'd completely shifted the boundaries of what anyone thought was possible in warfare.
Then came May 29, 1453. The final assault began in absolute pitch-black darkness. Mehmed sent waves of irregular troops first, just to totally exhaust the defenders. Then, a critical turning point hit. The skilled Genoese commander, Giustiniani, was severely wounded. Capitalizing on the sudden panic, Mehmed unleashed his elite Janissaries, who finally smashed through the St. Romanus Gate. A soldier named Ulubatli Hassan managed to plant the Ottoman banner. And just like that, as the smoke cleared, the 1,000-year reign of the Byzantine Empire evaporated. A 21-year-old stepped into history as the conqueror.
Section 4. Forging a global superpower, relentless expansion.
You'd think taking Constantinople was enough, right? Not even close. Earning the title of conqueror was honestly just the brutal prologue to a grueling 30-year march that totally reshaped the 15th century map. Over the next 3 decades, he methodically wiped out rival states. He took Serbia, absorbed Trebizond, marched into Wallachia to face off against Vlad the Impaler, secured the entire Black Sea, and even sent shockwaves through Europe by landing naval forces in Italy in 1480. He was turning his empire into an absolute juggernaut.
And what's truly staggering is how he fought on multiple fronts simultaneously. Out west, he's battling Hungarian knights, Venetian fleets, and dealing with brutal guerrilla tactics in dense forests. At the exact same time, out east, he's crushing a massive 60,000-strong army at the Battle of Otlukboli. It just brilliantly proves that his highly disciplined, centralized gunpowder units could completely outperform both the heavy knights of Europe and the fast nomadic cavalry of Asia.
And finally, Section 5, A Conqueror's Legacy, the Architect of an Era.
To really get the full picture of Mehmed, we have to look way past the battlefield. We have to look at how he took a war-torn, totally desolate ruin of a city and transformed it into the vibrant heartbeat of the world. He used this system called the Vakif. These were pious endowments where revenues from massive new commercial hubs, like the famous Grand Bazaar, were used to fund mosques, hospitals, and schools. He essentially centralized international trade, making sure the immense wealth of the Silk Road flowed right into his new capital, stabilizing everything through economics.
He didn't stop at economics, either. He built the San-i-Saman, or the University of the Eight Courts. Mehmet wanted an empire driven by intellect. So he blended traditional Islamic theology with this totally revolutionary curriculum focused on math, astronomy, and medicine. He treated legendary scientists as true peers and actively encouraged fierce, logical debates in his courts to make sure his empire was always forward-thinking. And then there was his approach to governance, the millet system. This was a real game changer. It allowed non-Muslim communities to form their own independent courts, practice their own laws, and collect taxes under their own leaders. By centralizing the military and bureaucracy, but allowing cultural autonomy through this millet system, he expertly wove this massively diverse population into one unified functioning society. In 1481, at just 49 years old, the Sultan passed away while prepping for yet another campaign. But look at what he left behind. A modern superpower that would absolutely dominate the global stage for the next 400 years. He had literally taken the fractured pieces of a dying medieval world and painstakingly forged them into an enduring empire of intellect, massive architecture, and military might.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Did Mehmed the Conqueror destroy an ancient world, or did he actually forge the first truly modern empire? As this explainer shows, the true measure of a conqueror isn't just in the walls he tears down, but in the vibrant, lasting civilization he manages to build from the rubble. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and as always, keep asking questions.